1976, and the United Kingdom basked in its hottest summer yet, as it's immersed in a glorious heatwave. Harold Wilson resigns and James Callaghan takes over, and a Labour government spearheads the country in a direction that brings it to its knees 2 years later. Sid James cackled his last breath, and Agatha Christie leaves us a legacy of murder. TV continues unabashed with its golden age of television, with the enterprising adventures of Louisa Gorblimey lend us a shilling governor Trotter, the canny Jack Loch'll have a fishy Ford, and the bed-hopping incestuous antics of Peter Manson. In October of that year, another new series returned. The subject of this programme of Look, Look and Look Again, one became three. This one's for you, subscriber Rapif1.
It should be tagliata.
It was in 1971 that Doomwatch's Simon Oates donned the bowler hat as John Steed, with the comely Sue Lloyd as his avenging companion Hannah Wilde, who were pitted against diabolical mastermind Madame Gerda, played by cult icon Kate O'Mara. The show was directed by Leslie Phillips, who brought the Super Spies to the stage at the Prince of Wales Theatre in London. Were crowds going round the block and giving rapturous applause to the gangsters in grease paint? Alas, no. It bombed. With that small flutter of a still-beating heart, the Avengers flatlined for good and went into limbo until, in 1975, Brian Clemens received a phone call. At the end of the line was Rudolph Rofi, a French television and film entrepreneur. Rofi wanted to film a champagne commercial in England and wanted to know if Linda Thorson was available, who in 1975 in France was still quite a big name. Rofi also wanted to know if Patrick Macnee was available, with the aim of doing an Avengers pastiche to sell the brand. Elstree Studio was booked, and all that was needed were the cool stars. Clemens networked, sourced both Thorson and Macnee, and the commercial was made.
Donc je vous disais, ma chère, que Laurent Perrier est un champagne qui...
Vous attendiez du monde? Ne m'envoyez pas si je vous laisse régler les détails de la cérémonie. Voyez-vous, cher ami, le champagne Laurent Perrier doit se boire à sa juste température. Frais, mais non glacé. En quelque sorte frappé. À servir entre 7 et 8 degrés. Et surtout, dans la plus stricte intimité. J'espère que vous n'attendez plus personne ce soir. Champagne, Laurent Perrier.
Rofi also asked how the Avengers TV series was going, but was disappointed to hear it had ended in 1969. Clemens explained to Ruffy that he and Albert Fennell had left the show open-ended for their return, but with the ever-changing face of television and spy shows waning, a further run of the series into the 1970s didn't emerge. Clemens also added that no other distributor seemed interested in picking up the show, and so it was shelved accordingly. Based on Clemens' guesstimation, the show would cost at least £2 million, which is about 13 million in today's money, to produce. Ruffy ended the call and informed Clemens he would be in touch again. Clemens did not expect anything more. In a fortnight, Ruffy contacted Clemens again, confirming he had secured the capital for a new series, and when would the filming be able to start. Over a period of 3 months, Clemens, Albert Fennell and composer Laurie Johnson got their shit together and formed the Avengers Film and TV Enterprises Limited. After negotiations, they formed an alliance with IDTV in Paris and got French backing. It was agreed by all parties that the return of John Steed was imperative for the show. As Brian Clemens stated, "Avenger girls come and go, but if Patrick Macnee fell down a manhole tomorrow, it would be the end of the Avengers for good." At the time, Macnee had returned back to America after the Champagne commercial shoot, when Clemens rang Macnee with the news. Macnee listened to Clemens and at first thought it was a joke and was sceptical. It would take Macnee a little time to come round to the idea. Macnee asked for a script, of which he never received, but Macnee was offered a 5% cut of the profits and £2,000 per week, the equivalent of £13,000 as of 2020. Macnee awaited for the script, which never arrived, and after speaking to his agent decided he would give it a go anyway. Macnee admits he felt duty-bound to the show and could see poor prospects if Steed didn't feature in the new series. Not in an arrogant way, but as Clemens and Fennell, Steed was the frontman. He was the Avengers. Deciding upon the new Avengers Girl Friday, lots of auditions went underway, and it did prove a very intimidating task. Over 300 actresses were auditioned for the role, and Brian Clemens condensed the auditions to 12. The Avengers Girl was finally picked, and she was going to be called Charlie at this stage. It was Joanna Lumley that got the plum role. The name Charlie had to be changed, as it was, at the time, a popular perfume, and the concern was all the free publicity that would be gained. According to sources, it was Lumley who came up with the name Purdy, which, as we might or might not be aware of, it's one of the most venerated and exorbitantly priced firearms in the world. On Monday, the 8th of March 1976, in the Daily Mail, Nigel Dempster fanfared the new Debbie-voiced Avengers starlet. Clemens envisaged Purdy to be a stocking and suspenders girl. However, Lumley and her fashion designer Catherine Buckley weren't too enamoured by this notion. It was mainly to do with the impracticality, and Lumley felt by shimmying up drain pipes, having punch-ups on rooftops or scrambling over barbed wire fences in suspenders and high heels would be most odd for an employee of the civil service for one thing, and would have no doubt resulted in a broken ankle. 29-year-old Lumley also had luscious blonde locks, another thing she wasn't keen on, so against the wishes of the production team, she had it all cut off. A stroke of genius, as this creation was the eponymous Purdy bob cut. Despite going against the whims and ideals of the production crew, Purdy is still a very foxy lady, even giving in a bit by showing her stocking top in 2 episodes of the show, and as Tara King before her displayed frills and flows in a fine array of garments. Purdy also had the manoeuvres of a ballerina, combined with her choice of self-defense, demonstrating some high-octane leg kicks. Purdy was cool, and Lumley fits the bill admirably.
Where'd you learn that, the Royal Marine?
Royal Ballet. They threw me out.
For the first time in the Avengers' history, Steed was to be teamed with 2 ongoing on-screen companions. Mike Gambit was introduced, full of 70s machismo and something for the ladies. Gambit was a man about town and probably dabbed on Paco Rabanne before putting on his Van Heusen shirt, gun holster, tailored suit and kipper tie. The role went to Gareth Hunt, who achieved notoriety for his current role as footman cum gigolo Alberto in the immensely popular Upstairs Downstairs TV series. Gambit complemented Purdy's image exceptionally well, and he distinctly lacked flamboyance and could easily mingle with the crowd, maintaining his secret agent anonymity. One thing that was positive and fortunate was the dynamics worked very well between the 3 stars and blew the three's a crowd argument out of the water. Lumley was in awe of McNee and bantered well with Hunt. Hunt proved to get along with most people on set and seemingly was a lot of fun and a genuinely decent human being with no airs and graces and a marvellous sense of humour. McNee offered his acting experience and guidance which endeared him to his co-stars. The 3 remained friends for many years after the Avengers finished. The first episode of this new Avengers series is The Brilliant Eagle's Nest, starring Peter Cushing. And was filmed in the Highlands of Skye and kicked off the show to a very promising start with its menacing monks and the use of fishing lines as the choice of weapon where they can either stun or kill. It also sports some moody direction. It all went swimmingly, but Albert Fennell wasn't happy with McNee. Fennell told McNee that he simply just wasn't Steed and asked Patrick McNee if anything was the matter. McNee put it down to the surprise of being put into the part and not having enough time to get into the role. There was also a slight rush in production, and he felt that this impaired him getting into his stride. However, deep down this really irked Patrick McNee somewhat, and he felt that he needed inspiration, but couldn't find it until he watched an episode of Benny Hill. Benny Hill was immensely popular in the 1970s in the United Kingdom, drawing in millions of viewers each week and never failing to make the top 10. In one episode, Benny Hill did an Avengers skit, lampooning Steed, but doing it with dignity. McNee observed and realised that Benny Hill was playing the part as Steed used to be, with the suave ebullience as top notes, with levity at the base. This was just the revelation McNee needed, and the jolt in the arm necessary for Steed to become Steed again. The definitive ensemble, you might say. McNee also began to rapidly lose weight, ensuring the amount of portliness gained through the 6 years of not being on screen soon vanished. With faith restored, Steed joined Purdy and Gambit for 13 delightful outings of crime fighting, but in a more grittier 1970s way for the first season. The new theme tune was composed by Laurie Johnson, reblending the wonderful Avengers theme tune, this time adding that 70s wah-wah-esqueness for a contemporary score. The first 7 episodes showcased a wonderful striding montage of things to come in the credit sequence, ultimately being replaced by the iconic lion red, white and blue motif from story 8 onwards. In some countries they jiggled about and placed the lion openers on all of the episodes. I rather like the montage sequence, especially with the skulled Red Death fiend plunging his hands into a punch bowl. It had its fair share of outlandishness, balanced by the more down-to-earth espionage stories. We saw in this season the return of the Cybernauts in their third outing, giant rats in the sewers of London, mind transference machines scrambling agents' minds, a gas that puts the whole of London to sleep in order to perform the ultimate robbery, and in the story The Midas Touch, we see one human having all the diseases known to man simply touch his enemies with bare hands, and they get them and suffer an agonizing multibacterial and multiviral death. Also, there was an arch-villain who controlled avian life forms into attacking their intended victim by the right tunage, and of course the story The Tale of the Big Y, which offered some ingenuity to the proceedings and plays like a treasure hunt, with the good guys being pursued by the bad guys in this highly enjoyable romp. In my opinion, the first season is the best one, supporting some cracking yarns for our triumvirate, although not everyone was happy. McNee for one wasn't best pleased with the scheduling. For some really odd reasons, the scheduling of the new Avengers was haphazard, neglecting a regular time slot for the show, and due to this it hampered a regular audience. McNee was also used to primetime Saturday night, but concerning this show it was transmitted in some places all over the shop. When the show first hit ITV screens in the October of 1976, it didn't generate much interest despite a decent marketing campaign. The critics warmed to the show in some reviews and were pleased that the word new in the title didn't mean that the programme had strayed too far from the original Avengers context, which had made the original show so popular. However, with praise there is always pith, with quite a few tabloids lamenting the programme, and one TV critic whinging that it was nothing more than a badly written Brian Rix farce, with apologies to Brian Rix. Ouch. Others observed that there was a distinct lack of chemistry between the leads, and it failed to be offbeat, unique, and the British quirkiness was somehow lost in the translation to screen from script. I personally don't get this and think that the chumminess of the three is quite visually apparent, especially that spot-on touch at the end of the first episode. Despite the abysmal scheduling and the tepid mixed responses in the UK, the series didn't do too badly overseas, with export demands proving to be quite lucrative. The stars were contacted again and informed that another 13 episodes were given the green light, so a second series was commissioned. Macnee contacted Clements and this time made a few ultimatums if he was to return to the role. Macnee noted a distinct lack of Steed's involvement in the first series and firmly requested that this should be changed. If this wasn't tangible, Patrick Macnee requested the show came back with just Lumley and Hunt. Clemens agreed to work with Macnee in order to shape the role of John Steed further and provide much more depth to the character the second time around. Clemens was also contacted by Ruffy, who said that he and the French backers found the first series most disappointing and needed to go back to the drawing board. He added Purdy lacked lip gloss with a wardrobe that was dull and drab, and what the French backers wanted was something sexier and more violent, but without compromising sophistication. Joanna Lumley was peeved by such feedback, believing the current trends of lip-licking and overt sexiness was all rather cliched and would be too vast a contrast for an institution like the Avengers. For the second series, as vowed, Purdy's wardrobe this time was half French design, whilst the other half was selected by Lumley herself from a wardrobe by designer Betty Jackson. Purdy's mushroom bob was ditched and replaced by a controlled but shaggier cut, also by John Frieda. The sex element was turned up and saw Purdy falling in love with an old flame, an episode called Obsession, which isn't very good. Steed also had more romance in his life with a variety of women, but more mature. Even his retirement mansion is cringingly known as Steed's Stud. And the dynamics between Gambit and Purdy was more alluding to their attraction towards one another, providing ample flirtation. Not as though Gambit was short of totty, as a bevy of crumpet was often sharing his bachelor pad. In my humblest opinion, Series 2 loses its lustre in comparison to the first. It's more anemic and dwells more on the relationship angle, which is perfect in small doses, but the action-packed thrills are sacrificed because of this. Suffice to say, though, there are some pearls in the grit. Angels of Death is a smasher featuring a buxom bevy of female assassins, including the beautiful Carolyn Monroe, brainwashing agents of their secrets and then sending them psychotic.
Tomboy, you're my style. Gambit, you have such a way with women.
Sorry.
Complex is similar to the story, the Tara King episode called Killer, about an inescapable technological menace, whilst the story Trap injects a little bit of much needed fuel as the new Avengers team up with the CIA to thwart a menacing Mandarin. Gladiators is possibly the most violent episode and was censored by the BBFC for a double head clap on its initial DVD release, citing their imitable violence bollocks. In this, a crackpot enemy organisation train a bunch of brutes to destroy a computer containing files of enemy agents which Purdy, Gambit and Steed need to thwart. Another wish that came true for the French backers was the need to give the new Avengers more of an international feel. K is for Kill and The Lion and the Unicorn were both filmed in Paris, France, while the last 4 stories of the season, which were Complex, The Gladiators, Forward Base, The Woeful Emily, all take place in Canada. Fortunately, the Canadians stepped in at the 11th hour as the French pulled out of their financial backing agreement, and the Canadian cash flow just managed the payroll to be met for all concerned. God only knows what Dennis Spooner was thinking with the plot for Emily, as his usually reliable, decent scripting and storytelling is chucked out the window completely in favour for an episode that is quite bluntly an embarrassing bore. These stories lose their joie de vivre and the essence that made the Avengers, whether new or original, what it is known for, and by introducing a foreign locale is truly the death knell for the programme. In the last episode, Emily, it sees Hugh Marlowe and Jim Hanley as producers rather than Clemens and Fennell. Once again, in the UK, Series 2 suffered from the slapdash scheduling, helping the new Avengers to seal its fate. This time, the programme failed to even make a dimple in the ratings, and the programme ended on a fart rather than a fanfare. Currently, at the time of this episode of Look, Look and Look Again, the series has not been released on Blu-ray, only on DVD. It definitely deserves a reappraisal and hopefully will get the chance of restorative appreciation on Blu-ray in the future for a Look, Look and Look Again for those on a nostalgia trip or to enlighten a host of novice new Avenger fans, even if it's mainly to see the first season. The New Avengers isn't without merit, but the show just never nailed it. It's a shame because it could have been a 70s masterpiece, but then it doesn't have to be to deserve cult status, which this flawed attempt certainly does. So, until next time, as we leave Avengerland for good, take care, keep safe, keep your distance wherever you are, and remember, even Steed & Co. can't get us out of the current calamity. But we can be the Avengers and whip this thing's arse. Good always trumps bad. In time. Cheerio.
Fully fashioned calf-length,
Brown boots, black boots,
patent leather jack boots,
low boots, high boots.
lovely lanky thigh boots.
We all dig those boots. Everybody's crazy for those kinky boots, kinky boots, kinky boots.
And whether you're in evening dress or bathing suits,
You wear boots, boots, a kinky boots. There are 20 million women wearing kinky boots, kinky boots.
Puss in Boots, footwear manufacturers are gathering the fruits.
Gathering the fruits, kinky boots. Advertising men say try 'em.
And you all run amok like a flock of sheep to buy 'em.
Sweet girls, street girls,
Frumpy little beat girls,
square girls, cool girls,
sexy little schoolgirls,
maiden aunties.
never debutantes,
They all dig those boots. Everybody's rushing for those Russian boots,
Prussian boots.
kinky boots.
Cover up the slender little tender foots with kinky, slinky. Leather is so kinky.
Come and get those kinky boots.